Okay,
All
first
right.
question. Part one, Bach cello suites. Gary S. Dalkin of Music Web International called Bach's cello suites, quote, among the most profound of all classical musical works. What draws you to them and what inspired you to transcribe them for violin and record them all?
Okay. Well, of course, the Bach cello suites are have been with me since I was a kid. You hear them all the time. My father is a violist who has played them on viola. Um, and growing up, this is music that's just been with me ever since I was a little kid. But I never really thought of the possibility of playing them on violin. And strangely, not that many people do that. Even though these works are played on so many different instruments. You can hear one on the clarinet, you can hear one on a trombone or marimba, but for some reason, violinists have not really been playing these works until relatively recently. Um, but I got interested in this idea after spending about 5 years um, learning, performing, recording the sonatas and partitas of Johann Sebastian Bach, and I loved that experience. And it was rewarding, and in a way that I learned a lot about not just the pieces, but I learned a lot about myself, things that excited me, but also things I needed to work on. And so when the time came for that project to kind of wind down, I was not ready to stop the learning process of being alone on stage and for a couple of hours and playing, like interacting with this material. And so I thought, let me try the first cello suite. And I was on tour with Mark Morris Dance Group and the Silk Road Ensemble in Melbourne, Australia. And we were there for about 10 days. And I gave myself kind of like a goal. I said, okay, instead of going around Melbourne, it was my first time, but instead of seeing the sights of Melbourne, I'm going to spend all of my free time in the dressing room in the theater, and I'm just going to try and learn the first and second suites and see how that works. And actually, it's been said that I've arranged or transcribed these works, but I haven't done that. There are actually numerous transcriptions that exist that I found on IMSLP from 19th century. So I imagine that back then people did play them on the violin, and so I used those scores to learn those two suites. And after those 10 days, I thought, okay, this is actually going to work. It feels nice on the violin. The violin provides maybe a slightly different viewpoint to the music. It makes it a little bit lighter, um, light on its feet. And so I just enjoyed the process very much. And then I said, okay, I'm going to learn all six. I got a 5-string violin for the last suite because it was written for a 5-string instrument, and I always love um, playing it. It's just a very cool experience to play that piece and play the 5-string violin, which I haven't done before. Um, yeah, does that?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
great. Are you playing that instrument at the performance for Pro Musica?
Yeah, I'm bringing it just for that suite. So I
Hmm.
switched to it at the end.
Wow. So that will be the last piece on the second day?
That's right.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Thank you. I read that Bach most likely composed the cello suites between 1717 and 1773, and that they were seldom performed until cellist Pablo Casals discovered an edition in a thrift shop in Barcelona in 1889. when he was 13. Is that true? And what do you
That is
think when
very
you hear a
true.
story
And
like that?
yeah, it is very true. And it's how lucky we are that you know, he stopped by that shop and found this music that was completely lost and forgotten. And I mean, his recording of all of the cello suites is, of course, iconic. It's, I think it's the first one, and it's, for many people, it is the standard. Um, and yeah, and since then, it just became this staple of repertoire for all cellists, and musicians that play other instruments as well.
I read that actually it's been played on about 28 instruments and recorded.
I am not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, yeah.
They have a very, it's and I I heard also that, at first people thought that maybe they were sort of like exercises or etudes, but because they seem like they might be deceptively simple on the page. But there's so much there, there's incredible I mean, there's incredible feeling, but there's also incredible brilliance of voice leading within a single line. Within a single melodic line, there's two or three voices very often happening at the same time, and there's just there's no surprise that um, musicians on any instrument often spend their entire life um, playing these works and um, kind of observing, I think, their own changes as musicians through that music. So like, for example, Yo-Yo Ma, recorded the works 3 times, and each one is a documentation of who he was as a person and as a musician in that moment. I just think that's really beautiful. And I'm hoping to record them again as well, because since I recorded them, which was about 5 years ago, um, I've had a, I've had a lot of opportunity to perform them, and through performing them, they have changed quite dramatically for me, and so now when I listen to the recording, I'm it no longer feels current. I don't play them that way anymore. And so at some point I'll probably record them again.
Is it possible to give an example of a part that you would like to change next time you record it?
It's not that I would like to change it, it's just that the things have evolved um, quite a bit. When I recorded them, I have not had a chance to perform them in public at all. Um, and now having, and it's the kind of thing where you can uh you can learn a piece, and this goes to for any piece of music really, but like you can prepare it at home and you can rehearse it as much as you want, and you can go like the distance, you can prepare 100%, and then when you get on stage there's a whole other 100% to learn just from the interaction of the instrument, the hall, the audience, the sound resonating, and the quality of listening that is happening between the audience, myself, and that is a ever evolving process. It never stops. So it's hard to say. It's hard to pinpoint like one specific thing. It's just the entire experience is quite different now.
Well, I hope the Santa Fe audience gives you beautiful energy when you perform there, because
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, we've had a beautiful time playing there with Brooklyn Rider recently, and the audiences are so knowledgeable and warm, and I'm very much excited to share this project with
oh,
everybody there.
good. Oh, good, good, good. Do you believe Bach's cello suites are structured as a circle rather than a series?
Huh. Can you say more about that?
Well, I just read about it on Wikipedia, and apparently there's some controversy over, the structure of the piece, and yet
Uh,
they also outlined each of the segments and the parts and what they, do and mean and all of that.
hmm.
Um, so I just wondered
I
if you
haven't
view
read.
it as a whole or not, or
I do view it as a whole, and very interestingly, um, and similarly to the way that the sonatas and partitas are written, with each work, he was kind of like expanding the possibilities of or like digging into more of what's possible on the instrument. So on the violin, you can really track the sonatas and partitas. You can really track how, like for example, the first sonata is very compact. It's four movements. All of the sonatas are four movements. It's the same, but the second movement in each of them is a fugue, and in the fugues you can see that he's stretching the possibilities of the instruments. Each of the fugues gets progressively longer and more complex, and the voice leading gets more complex, and so it's more challenging. With the partitas, which are in their own way dance suites, he was each piece, it's a different set of dances. So like the first partita, he does four dances and then four doubles, which are basically written out variations on the dance, right? It's almost like writing out an improvisation for an improviser, which of course he was. With the second partita, he writes four dances and then adds a fifth one, which is the chaconne, which in itself is a set of variation, which takes somewhere between 13 and 15 minutes to play as a standalone dance, right? So, and then the third suite is completely different French dances. So anyway, and he does the same thing with the cello suites. Each one just expands the range, yeah, a little bit further. By the time you get to the fifth suite, it's played scordatura, which means that you tune the instrument slightly differently. You tune the top string down a step, which creates a totally different resonance for the instrument. And then, of course, with the sixth suite, he writes it for an instrument that has five strings, and also, so it's just it feels, spending time in with this music, it really feels like I'm spending time with a scientist, who's like just tinkering in the lab with the material, and just like turn it a little bit this way and a little bit that way and that, and then by turning it, it opens up another possibility, and then you follow this way, and then so it's a very cool experience to be spending so much time with this music.
and just a quick question about the performance. What's it like to play for 75 minutes straight?
Well, that's the half of what it takes to play all of them, and this is what I usually do, is play all of them in concert at the same time. So, and usually without an intermission. So I think 75 minutes will go by in a flash. Uh, like really, they'll go by so quickly. And of course, I'm really excited to add to the program this new work by Gonzalo Grau, which is the Flamenco Suite for violin, which is part of this commissioning project called This is America that I've been working on for the last few years. But Gonzalo himself, he's from Venezuela, and he's an incredible musician who plays many instruments, including the piano, lots of percussion. But when he was growing up, he started on the cello and he played viola da gamba. And of course, the music of Bach has also accompanied him all of his life. And so, in thinking about this suite, flamenco suite, he was also sort of mirroring the general structure of a cello suite by Johann Sebastian Bach, and then presenting it in this flamenco form, which is so, so rich and so exciting. And I've only done it a couple of times, this piece, so I'm really excited to present it in Santa Fe, particularly since I know that the flamenco itself as an art form has a rich history in New Mexico and Albuquerque and Santa Fe. I've been told that one of the great um, kind of what is the word? Well, one of the great flamenco dancers lived in Santa Fe. I'm not sure if she's still alive, but anyway, so it's there's a connection there, and there's a connection between this piece and the cello suite. So I think it'll be nice to have them together.
Lovely. So when do you actually perform that, the flamenco? Where does
So
it appear in the program?
yeah, so each movement is placed. So the flamenco suite also has 6 movements, just like each cello suite. So I will play the first movement of the flamenco suite before the first movement of the first cello suite, and the second
Wow,
movement of the flamenco suite
cool.
before the second movement of the second suite, and so on. And I've never done it before, so it's just it's more of a concept, but I'm hoping that it's something that works well. Um, we'll see. So it's like an
Sounds like
experiment, a little bit like also being in the
yeah.
lab and just trying something. And I'm hoping that people are into the idea of going along for the ride.
Well, it's an amazing juxtaposition, which will show the complexity of both, right? So
Yeah.
that sounds wonderful.
I think Gonzalo also in writing the flamenco suite was also, kind of tinkering and seeing, what's possible, how, you know, the technical ability of one instrument representing multiple things at once. Because in a flamenco performance, usually you have, a singer, you have harmonic rhythm element like a guitar or multiple guitars, and then you have percussion, right? And also you have dancers. So um but and all of those 3 elements are embedded into my part, and I'm only one person. So so it's a really cool experience also to try, to hear all the things coming out from one instrument, which I think is also what Bach was doing in the suites, with the voice leading that I was saying, and like multiple voices going on at the same time. So I think it'll be really cool.
Do you practice like several hours a day before a concert like this?
I wish I could practice several hours a day every day, but I have 2 kids, I have a dog, there are lots of things going on, so I have not been able to get to my instrument, but I still have hope for today.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I don't want to keep you too long.
No,
So,
no,
could you please introduce the first part of the Bach cello suite that you'll be
sure,
playing as at the concert?
sure. Well, I mean, it's it's the most iconic opening, right? Like when people hear this movement, the prelude of the first suite, um, it's so familiar and it's so beautiful, and it kind of like, and it's an incredible. It's very short. It's only 2 or 2.5 minutes long, but it opens up a window into this experience of hearing this wonderful music, and really like going on a journey. So yeah, I hope you enjoy listening to this excerpt.